Welcome, beautiful people, and thank you so much for joining us for another session of this very special event, The Sacred Wound as a Portal to Your Awakening, Embracing the Dark Night of the Soul. My name is Charlie Giles, and I am honoured to be your host for this powerful wisdom sharing event. Before we begin today's session, I would like to do an acknowledgement to country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the very many lands that we are all meeting on today and thank them for their continued custodianship of the many lands, seas and waters that we all have between us. I would also like to acknowledge our elders, past, present and emerging, and thank them for their guidance and their wisdom that they continuously provide for us. Thank you. Today's session, we're talking to a very special guest, Robin Flynn. So Robin is a heart-centered guide, a plant spirit medicine ceremonialist, a New Earth mystic, a visionary artist, and sanctioned teacher of the Pachacuti Mesa tradition. As a ceremonial practitioner, Robin offers true and lasting experiences of healing and awakening through earth-honouring reverence, transformational creativity, shamanic wisdom, trauma-informed eco-psychology, and the power of personal sovereignty. She holds a bachelor's degree in eco-psychology and environmental studies from Naropa University and a Master of Liberal Arts degree in good and sustainable communities through Northern Arizona University. Since 1999, Robin has been mentored by beloved elders and generous wisdom keepers from South and North America in the art of ceremony. She's exceptionally well trained and has participated in and facilitated well over 1,000 entheogenic and shamanic ceremonies and worked with thousands in her healing practice. She has seen firsthand the incredible light and the staggering shadow of the psychedelic and ceremonial realm. From this firsthand experience, Robin co-created with her husband, Darcy Kopaz, the resource and empowerment therapeutic model of healing, which bridges earth-honouring shamanic wisdom and leading-edge new science. She's the co-founder of Visionary Hearts and Star River Sanctuary Healing Centre. Please welcome Robin for today's topic, Entheogenesis and the Sacred Wound. Hi, Robin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Charlie. It's such a joy to be here with you and everybody who's listening in.
Oh, I'm so pleased that you could make it, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I guess for the purposes of everyone listening and who may not be familiar with your work, did you want to start off perhaps about talking a little bit about your own personal journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like so many of us, my journey has really been, my healing is my path of service. And the core and great challenges of my life, that inner wound, which for me was actually very literal. I had a undiagnosable mystery illness, and it was something that caused bleeding basically for years. I had a bleeding disorder. And in that, talk about like the literal wound, and the fear, the overwhelm, the challenge of looking over and over and over for, just somebody who could help me. I went to, over 30 different doctors and practitioners from, basically what I could find in North America at the time with my budget, and really didn't make any headway. And it took about 10 years and in just an incredible journey, like psycho awakening journey, to finally make it to the sacred plant teachers. And with the ceremonial work, with culturally sanctioned ceremony, with the plants, is where really my personal healing began in earnest. And what I found was a transformation in my mind, body, and spirit that was so far beyond what I could have ever hoped for, that I've now spent the last close to 17 years in, really just in learning the ceremonial ways, because anything that has this level of efficacy, I felt was worth the study. And of course, the study has been my own continual healing journey, because we can't give what we don't have. The old, the kind of like the old school way of being in service to others is like kind of like the path of the martyr, and also, very codependent. Like, I'm just going to give and give and give. And my role here is to give myself away, and in that flow, I feel like that's kind of something that's really transforming now. And so my journey has been rich. It's almost impossible to put it all into words in a short intro, but it's been a rich and complex journey of taking that wound, and through the power of love and presence and lineage and the grace within Gaia that comes through the sacred plant teachers, being able to transform that wound into a gateway of medicine. So my work with the master teacher plants has really been the core expression of how wound can transform into a gateway of limitless medicine. And so, without more details on my own journey, that's really what called me to this work, to this path, to now being in service to thousands of others and their healing journey. And, I'm so grateful now for that initial wound, because it was my first initiation, my first true initiation. And it was an initiation of bleeding for 9 years. And the journey and the process of going to the depths of fear, despair, overwhelm, hopelessness, over and over and over. And then also finding my way through each of those, what I call like wrathful guardians. They're the guardians at the gate of initiation. And so to me, the journey of entheogenesis is, entheogen is the name or one of the titles of the sacred plant medicines and psychedelics, which means that which gives rise to inner divinity. And to me, actually, the journey, the actual embodied journey of taking those deep wounds and transforming them, with the use of shamanic psychoactive practices, which include the plants, but actually transcend the plants, because there's many practices that are psychoactive and very powerful that don't involve plant medicine. So I kind of have expanded that definition. And entheogenesis is the continual arising of divinity from within. And the wound is kind of where that, that separation is the greatest within our being. And it manifests for many of us physically, but it's not just physical. It's, on every level of our being. And it's actually the gift. And so that's just where I'd love to begin and see what you have to say about that. And I can dive into more areas of exploration.
Yes, absolutely. So many things. I love the way that you have explained that. And also the importance. So the word initiation, how you're describing that process and the importance of that. And then bringing in the importance of the shamanic role, shamanic practices, working together with the plants. I'm wondering if you can talk more about that and expand a little bit more on that from your experiences for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I was first a student of the goddess traditions, and I grew up in northern Arizona, which right near Sedona, which is like a new age epicenter. And so I grew up in a very, just say like a broad paradigm of, what's possible. I was going to channeling sessions with my mom as a kid. There was goddess gatherings, but actually there was some really amazing very clear human beings that were in that community. And I was brought into this ancient goddess tradition known as the Fellowship of the Isis as a teenager, mostly because I just asked to be a part of it. And they'd never had anybody who as a teenager asked before, so they had to like check out with the elders and like, okay, she can come. And I just loved ceremony. I just loved anything that had that feeling of reverence. And it was through that work that I first learned about, the mystery schools and what has been, kept alive, although has by necessity been hidden in plain sight. And even actually, hidden even deeper within our bloodlines, within our, like the deep realms of soul, for the time when, things could, like there was enough liberation, enough consciousness for that, those mysteries to come back into the light. And really, very, very centered around the divine feminine path of awakening, which is something that I feel is one of the most important things that we can be aware of on the journey of really for all of us now on the planet, which is no longer being the path of like up and out, which has been kind of a bit of the masculine way. And we know what comes from that, which is not necessarily healing and awakening. But the path of in and down, where it's actually about embodying the vast spiritual nature of our soul and what we actually are, which includes this body and this personality and this self, and yet absolutely transcends it. And where we start to, have these spontaneous experiences of just how big our soul is. Some people might call that past lives, but I see everything is happening all at once. And then the soul as such a vast, presence and being, that when we begin to actually embody this, we can say like the light of our true essential nature. So we actually start to embody this. We, by necessity, have to go through the initiatory process of cleaning out our vessel, the purification, which, the wounds to me are the places within our being that we are embodying the illusions of separation. So the illusions of separation are they're absolutely a necessary phase within the growth of soul. First, we have to individuate. And when we see children, there's an individuation process. That's healthy. However, it's gone to an extreme in this last age because we have gone into so many extremes, harsh extremes of separation, where separation is an absolute versus a part of individuation. Like we're still absolutely connected, we still are one, and we're two unique beings. It's being able to hold paradox. And so the path of initiation and what was known in the mystery schools, what was built into the temple complexes in, not just the Mediterranean with, say, the ancient illusion mysteries, but also built into the temples in Ireland, the temples in Peru, especially where I first was deeply initiated with the plant medicine Washuma, which is a sacred site called Chavin de Wantar. All of these sites have one characteristic, which is to me so amazing. And they're all built to go in and down into the earth. So this is a perfect, it's like built into the stones, and these are the most ancient temples on the planet. And there's a recognition that before we can open to the vast light and truth of our being, we first have to go in and down. Both, what was built into the temples is how powerful that is to go actually into the earth. And there's so much medicine in the kivas of, the Southwest, of like all these cultures that knew that we needed to return to the womb of our mother. We needed to go in and down. And the paradox of the divine feminine path of awakening is that to ascend, we must first descend. So we got to go in and down, like the whole up and out thing. We know what happens. We get spiritual bypass. And through spiritual bypass, we get unbelievable harm and the hierarchy of specialness, that we get spiritual specialness, which has caused more devastation than almost anything else. And so that initiatory journey is really unique. Like there's the kind of the archetypal path. Okay, we each actually have to go into our own inner world, which when we close our eyes and we rest into that is very, very, is so rich. It's just as beautiful and vast and rich as the outer world. However, because it's been untended by so many of us, we have been separated, we've been taught to fear it, that there's usually a lot of cleaning up to do. And with the plant medicines, this is what we usually find. It's like, oh, it's dark. And all of a sudden I drink this medicine. And then like all my inner world is like, painted on the maloka, or it's just projected out. And that can be a lot to be with. But then, to not stop there. And that's, that's where my passion is. We got to go in and down, but then we actually get to ascend. We get to raise our vibration and our being into just how beautiful life is, and to return to love and joy and, really the gift of life. And so that's to me like the initiatory journey in like a couple minutes. But the journey with entheogenesis then is like, okay, we've gone through the archetypal initiation. And now how do we live it and allow that arising to continually be present? And that's something that is an art. And I feel like it's an art that we can't do alone, that we need sacred community with. And so I'll just leave it there for that question.
I know we've talked, especially in this theme of the whole conference, there's a lot of, we're talking about the darkness and the shadow and going inwards and doing that work. And we talked previously about, making sure there is that balance. And you just touched on it a little bit there, making sure there is that balance of working on the shadow, but also working in the light. And I'm wondering if you can maybe expand a little bit more on what happens when you do start doing the shadow work and you do need to balance into that light, because I'm sure people are thinking, well, what happens afterwards as well?
Totally. And I think this is really from my experience of, basically like finding the plants, finding the radically multidimensional worlds of shamanism, where all of a sudden, like spirits weren't an idea. They were they become an everyday reality. And as what, in our tradition is called the vista, your sacred site, opens, it can be, equal parts beauty and distortion, because what my experience is as, we're basically purifying our vessel, which is a continual process. But the first couple of years is a very intense process of purification and testing, and like that's kind of not like we need to test each other, but life is a great initiator, right? Life brings the perfect opportunities for us to make those pivots. Okay, am I going to choose, basically greater love or contraction and fear? And I actually do feel like it's often that simple. Even with all the complex nuance that happens in life, it's often for me like, okay, what does true love look like in this moment? However, as we begin to do this work, as I did, what I found was like that there's so much purification to do that it can almost feel like an endless well of shadow. And, one of the beautiful medicine wheel teachings from one of our elders from the Sikh Blackfeet people is to look, but not stare. And especially when we're working with really intense what in our culture we call trauma. In, the Peruvian lineages that I have worked within, like the North Coast Kamaska lineages of Washuma Curanderismo, it's called either susto or daño, like what, shock or harm. These are like really vast fields of energetic impact. Shock is more, accidents, where our spirit jumps out of our body. Daño is actually harm, either intentional or unintentional, from another. And those energies, and then the inner shadow realms that happen when we have been deeply impacted by trauma or tragedy, loss, is like we can just be stuck on we can be staring at the hell realms. We can be staring at that one memory over and over. And of course, that does nothing but strengthen that power in our lives. And so what I found was, after a couple of years and working with some different teachers, like, okay, I went to South America and then I came back, and there was like a lot, like my husband and I just went like full bore. We're like, okay, we're going to work with this lineage and then this, and we're going to try sweat lodge. We're going to do all these things, and really messed ourselves up. But I would never recommend that, actually. However, we learned some very, very valuable lessons. And sometimes our greatest teachers help us to learn how we don't want to be. And so that was like basically our first 5 years of medicine, the medicine apprenticeship journey. And in that, I saw in myself, and then I see this over and over and over with the people who come to work with us. We can become addicted to the shadow. And so it's this really interesting, like, skillful means that we need to cultivate of tending the shadow, but not getting hooked on all the stress hormones, that kind of get inflicted, and then building our entire identity around the wound versus actually truly transforming it and coming through it and moving into like post-traumatic growth, or, however we want to articulate it. And so what we have cultivated in our practice, and this took many years of, and multiple teachers that are like really in the good, beautiful, true sense of, those loving, kind mentors, is that we work in a way that we actually literally balance the light and the dark. And so in a lot of our work, and we offer international retreats, and we work with the plant spirit medicine and the art of ceremony. And we have ceremonies in the night and the dark. And then we have ceremonies in the light and the day. But we always begin first, if we're going to do shadow work, nighttime work, we begin by entering the darkness first, because that is in honor of this ancient wisdom that, first we need to go in and down. And it's, I feel like we either have in the spiritual movement, like, there's a lot more focus now on trauma work. There's a lot more focus on the wound. There's a lot, actually, I'm finding much, much less of sort of the shadow of New Age, which is like the love and the light and the angels, although that's also part of it. But, like that, like being all of it, like if you just think positively enough, you're going to transcend this, right? That actually I see a lot more tendency for the trauma work. But then how do we raise and lift that into the elevated emotions? And to me, even just holding the consciousness and the attention to create harmony and balance within our lives is huge. And then also, after the deep shadow work, consciously bringing back the joy and the pleasure. And so for me, this can be as simple as I've just done some very deep work, and I'm going to go and get a massage, and like literally tactile, bring the pleasure back into the body. I'm going to go and have like, not like some, go for a long walk, go to hot springs, very much like get connected to my body and nature and pleasure. Because what we can, like the shadow work and the wound work is often painful, like, and literally in the ceremonial work with the plants, It's like when we're transforming these patterns within us, they can kind of light up in our body as pain. It can be very, very uncomfortable. And if we kind of, stay in that for too long, what I found is we just don't have the resource. We don't have we're not held in the big enough love to actually be able to become strong and resilient and adaptable, which is what the plants want for us. Like the plants, and I feel like all of the angelic ones and all of our guides and our higher selves, want us to truly embody our beauty and our sovereignty and not become dependent on any one thing, but also balance out. Like if we've had a lot of pain, then we need to bring in the pleasure. If we've just been, in the depth of our healing crisis, like there's almost nothing better than fun and laughter and, flowers and hummingbirds, hanging out with puppies and kittens and kids. It's really like that. And so, the wisdom of all the mystical traditions and the core, powerful medicine traditions that at least I have worked with and been initiated into, is that of divine union. So it's always about that uniting of the sacred polarities within us of masculine and feminine, the night and the day, or we could call the shadow and the light, or our persona, heaven and earth, time and space, spirit and matter. It's about this divine union, this uniting of these polarities, and not getting too heavy in the dark or too heavy in the light, but walking that, that razor's edge right at the middle where they come together. And to me, that's where, the power of what we are as soul beings, we can begin to truly experience, is when we're in that conscious, almost ritual enactment of divine union and of that harmonizing, not creating balance, because I actually don't think balance happens very often. There's a small moment of balance, but it's more the harmonizing of those sacred polarities within us. And it can be pretty simple and practical to do that. We take it into very grand measures within our ceremonial work, because this is the core practice for how we work with the sacred plant teachers. However, it's very simple, but it can be infinitely profound. And that's also why my husband, I work with my husband, and we're consciously in sacred partnership, because that's also that balancing and that harmonizing of the polarity. And I feel like that's especially important these days, is to be in, in whatever way. It doesn't really matter the gender, but sometimes gender can matter. And in ceremonial work, actually gender can really matter. However, that's maybe a topic for another time. But this harmonization of these complementary opposites. And so hopefully, with all the wound and shadow here, that's really wonderfully, and thank you so much for shining the light on it, that we can also make sure that we, remember how beautiful life is here and what a gift it is.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for verbalizing all that so beautifully, and bringing in that topic of balance. It's just so, as you mentioned, the time that we're in, it feels like there's so much out of balance. Mm-hmm. Everything is directed towards either one side or the other, right? There's that very definitive line. And I guess it really feels like that's why this topic comes up so much, because we are in a space where the balance needs to come back. So if we can work on that as individuals to bring our awareness to how we can balance those things, hopefully that will help on a universal level.
Absolutely. I'm very much, not just a believer, but I feel like it's from a core knowing that it's the planetary healing is coming from within each one of us. And we just sometimes can't even imagine how big of a field effect we actually have.
So I guess, from the best message that you could give to people listening who, for some, this might be very new to them. For others, they might be, just starting to be introduced to this kind of world. What could you say to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, one, to keep going. And that's, one of my dearest friends and elders, this man named Paul. It's like through the huge expansions and the depths of despair, it's like there's just one teaching, and it's to keep going, to not get stuck anywhere, because life is just continually unfolding. And we know that the only constant is change. And so to consciously keep going, and to know that the merit, like the gift of meeting these inner wounds, and actually even holding them in your consciousness as sacred, that in itself is radically profound. Like, how many generations has it been that there hasn't even been enough inner spaciousness, because there's been so much surviving to even have the consciousness that these places within us, be them in our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our emotions, that are painful, actually are sacred. That in itself is, I feel like, just a contemplation that we might just be in our whole life. And then second, with that this alchemical process, of transmuting what is old and dense and ugly and harsh and most likely not ours. It's just been passed down and down and down and down until somebody like me and you and everyone listening has enough inner resource, enough soul strength, enough consciousness to end the cycle. And that is, to me, what the big ask is here. It's like, okay, very, very few of us incarnated into families that have it all figured out. In fact, it's usually pretty messy and painful, and there's a lot that we each are being asked to transform on behalf of our ancestors and all the generations going forward, whether we choose to have children or not. It's actually still an energetic transmission forward and backward in time. And what I would like to share to, like, really, what I have devoted and I'm devoting my life to, like, this is my absolute soul mission. And I've just chosen to actually take all of my life force and direct it in this one single point of focus, which is that through our empowered healing, no longer looking for the healer outside of ourselves, because we know that it actually doesn't work like that. The healer always resides within. However, paradoxically, we need each other to heal. I don't know why. That just seems to be how it works. It's a paradox. But that my devotion is creating spaces and co-creating spaces where that inner healer can awaken. Because when we each heal one of these wounds, which we all carry many, that it shifts all of the future timelines of the entire collective into higher order, into greater potentiality of all the children having a world and a consciousness and a space to come into this life that is lighter and filled with more love and gratitude and beauty and conscious health and well-being. And it creates that potentiality for ourselves and each other. And it also shifts the timelines backwards, because the past actually doesn't exist except for here and now. And so these wounds are multidimensional. And when we actually do this, like, this soul work, this soul alchemy, the gift to our own lives is profound. But there's also a planetary medicine that happens. And we know this through the meditation effect. We know this through, like, the leading edge psi research. Like, it's been proven, And so in that way, to know that, sometimes for me to try to heal some of the things that have been within me for myself, I didn't have the strength. I just couldn't get off the ground. But if it's to heal them for the children, then I actually can muster up. I can muster up the strength. I can muster up the grit to keep going. And so that's my, that's my my encouragement and my clarion call, for all of us, and that we do need each other, and to choose to be in communities that are very, very heart-centered, to surround ourselves with loving and kind and encouraging people who are on the same journey, because not everybody is, and not everybody's going to understand. And so I've really needed to have those allies in my life, those dear friends and mentors and kind guides and elders to learn from, but also to hold a space for me that I could begin to trust myself, to learn from my own heart, which is, a very leading edge for all of us. So with that, I just share, keep going and find those communities where you feel like you can be loved as you are in your being, but also encouraged in your becoming, because we're all infinite being and we're all in an evolutionary journey. Another paradox.
Wow, what a beautiful closing message for everyone. We said before, I truly believe we could probably talk for hours on this topic. It's such an amazing message, but thank you so much. I'm also, conscious of the time, so I would really love for you to be able to explain your free gift that you have for everyone as well.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be able to offer this. It's this beautiful hour journey that is really my husband. His name's Darcy, and my kind of like tribute and homage to the 5,000-year-old lineage that we work within, which the latest name for it is the Pachacuti Mesa lineage. However, it has lived through cultures going back in time. And this is a talk that we gave years ago at the Plant Spirit Medicine Conference in Vancouver, but we've put it together with images of our elders and our beautiful wisdom keepers in Peru. And it's a really in-depth, deep dive on plant spirit medicine and the sacred technology of the Pachacuti Mesa. And you can find it on our website, visionaryhearts.com. And it's just at the bottom of the front page, and you can download that. There's also my master's thesis, which I did do my field work in Peru. That's what got me to Peru for the first time. And so my master's, there's an excerpt from my master's thesis, which is a 100-page excerpt, but it's still an excerpt nonetheless. And so that's there as well. And we are going to be offering, we have a new cohort of students that we're welcoming in for the Pachacuti Mesa tradition 15-month apprenticeship starting in June and July in British Columbia, where we live, and in Alberta, which is not a long shot for people in other parts of North America either. And that's all on our website as well. But that's really, to me, one of the great gifts that we can offer at this time is, very, very grounded, practical tools of how to be empowered in your journey through direct spiritual connection. And the apprenticeship journey is not an apprenticeship to Darcy and I. It's a direct apprenticeship to spirit through the vehicle of the lineage. And so we're really passionate about it. And that hour long will just give like the eagle view of what's happening within this one golden stream of lineage, which there's many, thank goodness, all around the world.
Yes. That sounds amazing. How very generous of you. I'm really looking forward to that. And I'll make sure that all of the accessibility links and things are available for everyone. So they'll be able to find your website and obviously sign up to your newsletter as well. So that will really help people to stay updated with what you're offering.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for your time, Robin. It's been an absolute delight listening to you and your message and all the work that you are doing. So grateful for the work that you do, and the people that you serve. It's just fantastic to listen to.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for your vision and following that vision and bringing this forward. It's much needed.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for your time. And yeah, I'm sure I'll connect with you again soon.
That sounds great. Many blessings. Bye for now.